What is going on, everybody? It's the France, and we're here for UnScripted for 120 for your Sunday, May 24th, 2020. This has been probably one of the worst weeks of wrestling, professional wrestling, in a very long time. We lost to Shad Gaspard. What happened in the circumstances around the loss of the Japanese wrestler Hana Kimura? It's been a very, very weird and tough week for the professional wrestling world. On top of that, Dark Side of the Ring gave us the final days of Owen documentary this week. It's just been one of those weeks of just so much sadness, so much heartbreak, so much. It's just, this week is just terrible. Now, I didn't know from her at all. I didn't know her. I'd never seen her wrestle, never seen any of her work, so I don't know anything of her. All I gotta say is cyberbullying needs to stop. Can I do anything to stop it other than just being better in myself? No, nothing. Nothing I say out of what I do for myself is going to help stop cyberbullying. It's gonna have to take a collective of everybody to get it to stop, and unfortunately, that's not going to happen. It's just senseless. It shouldn't have happened. And what else can I? Shad, on the other hand, what we're going to talk about right now, I know more of. Him and JTG made up the team of Crime Time. They were in WWE in the the mid 2000s as pretty much a stereotypical neighborhood hooligans. Pretty much, they were gangsters, like gangster wannabes and whatnot. I remember the promo videos. You had the one where it's like they spoofed the guy from Seinfeld who said the N-word at a comedy spot. Instead of him getting like chased off or whatever, like Chad beat him up and kicked the guy. This bum with a boot, like booted this guy in the face with his boot. They were a great team. Chad was ripped. He was jacked. This guy could have been. If WWE would have put the time with him in him himself, he would have been he could have been a great wrestling guy in WWE. But one thing that really always stuck with me, like I hated the fact that Crime Time never got that time to be a championship team. They were there from 2006 to 2010. No, 2006 to 2007, if I'm correct. And then 2010 to 2014, if I'm right. Now, I remember back in, 2006? Right before they started airing any videos or whatnot. I used to be a .comer. I used to go there all the time. You did too, because back then you didn't have Twitter, you didn't have Twitch, you didn't have Instagram, you didn't have Facebook, you didn't have anything but probably MySpace. In WWE, I'm there for the news and stuff, see what's going on in WWE outside of, the dirt sheets, and something pops up they have on there. It's a warning for tonight's episode of Raw, if I'm correct. And it says, tonight a new tag team, Crime Time, will be introduced to the Raw audience. In an effort to humor and entertain our fans, the tag team known as Crime Time will be parodying racial stereotypes. Shad Gaspard and JTG do outlandish, outrageous stunts and to ready themselves for tag team action on Raw. This attempt at Saturday Night Live like humor is bound to entertain audiences of all ethnic diversions. We hope you enjoyed the weekly adventures of Crime Time. That was, if you were somebody who was a .com who went out and .com and went to www.com because that was your social media back then. There was no anything. That was how they introduced Crime Time to you. Was they're going to be stereotypical racial stereotypes, and yes, they were. JTG looked like fucking Nelly. He absolutely did. Shad Gaspard looked like a big thug who would go out there and whip your ass if you got in his way, and honestly, he was. But I didn't know this. I didn't know anything about the person Shad was, but apparently the nicest guy in the world. He could look like the meanest, toughest son of a bitch on TV, but backstage and everything else, he was the nicest guy in the world. And unfortunately, a week ago, him and his son, with a bunch of other people, were swimming off the coast of California, I believe it is, off the beaches of California. And a riptide came up and grabbed them, and rescuers were rescuing many people, and they went to go get Shad, and he said, "Save my son." And his final act before he got pulled under was his son to be saved. And not much else you can say about a man who, in the time of dire straits, picks his son over him. It's just great. Shad is definitely missed. He wasn't a WWE lifer either. This guy wasn't a wrestling lifer either. He's not been wrestling for the last few years. He's been trying to get into movies and other ventures. He's been wanting to do other things. He knew wrestling. He probably figured that wrestling for him was not going to be something that was going to be lucrative all its way. He wanted to do other things to get his wife and son, who is 10, I believe, to have a better life. And he is gone. He is. It just sucks. Now, I know that the friends and Shad's family set up a GoFundMe page. I will probably put the link down in my description because that's the right thing to do. And if you do have the money, please go donate. I know that they reached a $100,000 goal. I mean, a very good patron of that donations helped out, as somebody with the name CTC Rip donated $40,000 to the Shad Gaspard family. Now, if anybody who doesn't know what CTC stands for, it stands for Crime Times T Nation. For a small time, for a very short time, in I think it was 2008, Crime Time showed up with John Cena when John Cena was shooting with JBL in 2008. It was in June 30th episode. They showed up with John Cena, and they destroyed JBL's limousine. They vandalized it. They were beating it up. They destroyed the windows and everything. They took a can of spray paint, a couple of them, and tagged it with CTC. We never heard what CTC stood for on TV. I guess it was Crime Time C Nation. John Cena or one of the members of Crime Time on a house show said that's what it meant. Unfortunately, John Cena got hurt. John Cena got hurt in a championship match, I think it was. Yeah, Cena got injured not too long after that, and the CTC was never heard of again. And it was like, this is going to be, especially for Shad and JTG, the biggest what if of their careers, because what if Cena doesn't get hurt and the CTC things takes off? Maybe they're tag team champions. Maybe they win singles gold because the US and Intercontinental titles. Maybe they win that. Maybe John Cena actually turns heel and leads these boys to the promised land of being champions multiple times. We will never know, because John Cena ended up getting injured, and then they went off to do their own thing. Ended up getting drafted to SmackDown. Cena, of course, stayed on Raw, and boom. Of course, when they went to SmackDown, after a good couple months or so, WWE does what WWE does best. They took Prime Time and they split them up. Shad became the heel, beat up JTG. JTG became a babyface. The only thing they really did was this Four Corners match, which I remember the ending of this one is that Shad had JTG tied up, hanging off of his back as he's walking around, tagging the corners. He tagged a corner, JTG would tag the corner. He tagged the other corner, JTG would tag the one corner. And then it got to the fourth corner. JTG was able to do maneuver or something and be able to tag that fourth corner, so he won the match. Then JTG was sent down to, not JTG. JTG stayed up on SmackDown while Shad Gaspard went to Florida Championship Wrestling, FCW. And then let's see here. Gaspard was later released in contract on November 19th, 2010 during his fight along with 5 other wrestlers. JTG was released from WWE 4 years later in 2014. I didn't realize that JTG was around in 6 years ago. I forgot. But hey, that's what happens when you go from appear to down to when nobody remembers you. But yeah, JTG, Shad Gaspard were a great tag team. And at the time, one of the only negatives of JTG and Shad Gaspard's entire time in WWE, the first or second run, was Lita's retirement. Lita had a retirement match for the Women's Championship and she lost. But what did WWE do? Let's embarrass Lita more by having Shad Gaspard JTG come out with her clothes, her underwear, her bras, her pants, her t-shirts, and just do a sale, throwing him in the crowd, while this woman who is retiring and having her last match in WWE for a very long while, let's have them just embarrass the hell out of her. That one I didn't like. Other than that, there was a time where they stole JR's laptop, not JR, but the King's laptop by distracting him and JR with JTG doing a bunch of, like, trying to teach JR how to properly handshake and everything. There was just so much hype. Like, they just came, like, they were an absolute comedy group, but they were fun comedy. And again, one of those things that was like, they got title opportunities to go after championships, but they never won the championships. And it was one of those ones that I was like, why didn't these guys ever win titles? Why weren't they ever positioned to be champions? I know they're supposed to be a comedy group, but you got to give these guys their due. They go out there, they kick ass. They were hardworking guys. Give them what they deserve. Give them a shot at the titles and give them the titles, because there's no reason why they shouldn't be champions. But they never became champions in WWE. They won championships outside of WWE, which, hey, it is what it is, and that's good on them, but that's just how WWE likes to be. Shad will be remembered as a hero, a warrior, WWE. If you're somebody who in the mid 2000s or early 2010s will know him as one half of Cryme Time, just a hell of a guy. One of the best moments that Shad Gaspard had was last year outside of WWE, was during Kofi Kingston's celebration of winning the WWE Championship. Wherever him, MVP, and JTG were at the time, they were watching this match. It had to be at a bar, it could have been at a family's house, but somebody had the camera focused on MVP and Shad. JTG was right off the side right there, but you could see the reaction these two guys had, the emotion that came over these guys as one of their boys, one of their friends, one of the guys that they probably had a lot of like affiliation with, won the big one, won the WWE Championship. That was one of the great moments of WrestleMania last year, when you saw Kofi's WWE Championship win, affecting those he had spent time with in WWE. It was a beautiful moment and was awesome. Again, rest in peace, Shad Gaspard. Rest in peace, Hana Kimura. I don't know much. I would like to go on like a 15-minute spiel about Hana Kimura, but I just can't, because I don't know anything about her career. I haven't seen anything. I haven't followed her career, so it's not right for me to do that. But it doesn't excuse the fact that she is dead just 2 days ago. Let's talk about The Undertaker's Last Ride, Part 2. The Undertaker. As we know, last week, we talked about Undertaker's Last Ride, Part 1, which, of course, debuted right after Money in the Bank. That one was a great documentary piece. If that was it and that was it, that was supposed to be it, it would have been one of the best they've done. But we all know what happened with The Undertaker. He came back the next year, and he came back 2 years ago, beat John Cena in 2 minutes, then did not come back the year after that for WrestleMania, but did all the Saudi Arabia shows they've had so far, and then of course had the Boneyard match. But I have a feeling that the Boneyard match might be it for Undertaker. Apparently, WWE is trying everything they can to keep the idea of what the Undertaker's status with the company is coming out of episode 5. So it's gonna be interesting. But Undertaker last night part 2. One of the biggest takeaways is yes, the first episode, that match against Roman Reigns was supposed to be the retirement match. That's why he took off the coat, the gloves, and the hat, and put him in the middle of the ring. That was supposed to be it. But he hated that match. He was bothered by it. He got hip surgery, like a type of hip surgery to relieve the pain. And then towards the beginning of the year 2000 and what was it? 15? Something like that. Whenever WrestleMania 34 happened, he was not happy with that match. He wanted to. He watched it when they showed him and Michelle sitting down watching it, and he just couldn't handle it. He said, I feel bad for Roman. That bothers me. It's like I didn't know where I was supposed to be. I haven't spoken to him about it. I did the best I could to do for him. The problem was my physical conditioning. My body was at the limit of what I could do. He even admitted on this documentary he had no business being in the ring at WrestleMania 33, 3 years ago. So it would have been 17 to 18, yeah. He had no business, and absolutely, if you go back and watch that match, anyone could say, oh, this Blast Ride documentary shows how much more epic that match is. Bullshit. It just shows how much more sadder that match was. That match should have never happened. As we know, even if you watched the first episode of Last Ride, he even said at the Rumble he knew he had no business being in the ring. And yet, he went to WrestleMania, stunk up the joint with Roman Reigns, and then, of course, we lead into what happened this time around. Vince, of course, echoes his sentiments about it, saying he wasn't there and he knew he wasn't there. So, of course, this means Taker wants a second crack at a goodbye match, commentating, I feel like I need more redemption for that performance, so here we are. Of course, The Undertaker had hip surgery following WrestleMania 33. Not too long after WrestleMania 33 either. A few weeks after getting pinned in Orlando, Mark Calloway had his right hip replaced after having had his left hip replaced a number of years ago. His time in the hospital provides the first real laugh out loud moment. Now, there was a part of this where, like, he's sitting there in the bed, a hospital bed. The nurse is asking, "Have you had any surgeries before and everything?" And he just starts chuckling because he's had both eye sockets crushed, multiple fingers. He can't even make proper. He can't even flatten his hand. I think it was his right hand. He can't even flatten his hand because of all the surgeries and stuff he's had on his body and his hand. Like, he's had his hand had surgery on his hand, and his hand, he just can't he can't do a full 5. When you go to high five somebody, he cannot put his hand out all the way. The next laugh out loud moment was immediately thereafter when he wheeled into the OR where the doctors are literally playing his theme song. Not exactly the kind of thing you want to hear on the operating table, but the surgery guy goes his plan. He's back on his feet by the next morning, though apparently he caught some guff from McMahon, who told him he walked out the same day as his 2013 hip surgery. McCool was once again on here. He says, I changed in regards of wanting to return to the ring. Calloway says this. To which she immediately files vaccines yesterday. He knows that's what's coming, whether or not it. Now, we did find out in this episode how these two started dating. Apparently, he fell in love with her because she can throw a football. Okay, that's cool. I mean, I guess one of the years and years ago, before they started dating, there was an episode of, I think, Raw or SmackDown, where a bunch of guys had been throwing a football around, but nobody was throwing a football properly. They just looked like chumps throwing a football. So she comes over, grabs it, throws it down the fucking on a couple of feet away, and he's like, boom, that's my girl. Then he starts putting on the charm, apparently. So, yeah. Undertaker marries Michelle McCool started dating Michelle McCool because she can throw a tight spiral. Okay, whatever floats your boat, Taker. But, yeah. Then we learned how much Undertaker means to Vince McMahon. There was a point in this where the person interviewing Vince McMahon asked him, what does Undertaker mean to you in WWE? And you could see Vince McMahon holding back tears, not wanting to. He's like, I just can't. I can't say anything. I can't say about that. The emotion that Vince McMahon tried to hold back because how much Undertaker means to his company, to him. Because honestly, if the Undertaker does not come in 1990 and isn't there this entire time, that's an anchor. That is a tentpole of the WWE in the Attitude Era that kept this company grounded. The New Era and everything in between. This kept this company grounded. And honestly, I think the WWE possibly could have collapsed without the Undertaker when they were going under. What do you mean he wasn't Stone Cold Steve Austin? I don't care. Undertaker was just the measuring stick. He was a guy who you don't fuck with, a guy who has respect from everybody. Hell, even in the last episode, I believe it was, Scott Hall had a little piece in this when they were talking about the early days of The Undertaker, when Scott Hall, a greedy motherfucker, would not take anybody to make more money than him except for The Undertaker. He said in that testimonial that he's like, I watch this guy work, and then I'm saying, I don't mind if that guy makes more money than me because he's earned it. That's the respect everyone has for The Undertaker. As we know, Undertaker and McMahon have a really tight bond. The deepest love in his life is a love outside of his wife was for Vince McMahon, a feeling which appears to be eventually reciprocated, even though Calloway says he can't even predict how a conversation with Vince McMahon is going to go not too long after his hip surgery I think at the end of the year, really, on the road to the next WrestleMania. He said, I gave up strategizing meetings with Vince McMahon a long time ago because he went into a couple meetings wanting to say all this stuff and come out of the conversation in the meeting thinking, I didn't get anything I wanted across. That's just Vince McMahon for you. That's just how it works. It was a Saturday in August. Vince McMahon is the only man that they know can conduct business on Saturdays. We learned that Taker love for Vince McMahon is deep that he named his son Gunnar Vincent. Okay. And Michelle McCool says as the pair, they were literally like a bullet. They will literally take a bullet for each other. A sentiment that was, of course, reiterated by The Undertaker. When McMahon is asked what Taker means to him, he responds, Mark Calloway is the most loyal performer I have ever had with before. And then, of course, breaking down with tears, as I said before. The Undertaker never left. Hulk Hogan did, Kevin Nash did, Scott Hall and Randy Savage, Bret Hart, and countless others switched sides. That is the biggest thing. Undertaker, who was originally on the side of WCW at the beginning of 1990. Undertaker Mark Calloway was in WCW in the early portion of 1990. It's not like he was always in WWF in that year. But I believe Ole Anderson or somebody told Mark Calloway that you will never get over with orange hair, with the hair color that he had. He had dark, Undertaker is not a dark, natural black hair wrestler. He has natural red hair. His hair is naturally red. And I believe Ole Anderson told him, you will never make money with being a redhead. So Taker left. Mark left, went to WWE, became the Undertaker, and yeah, I'm sure he's only got eating those words because Undertaker's has this big bank account where Ole Anderson became irrelevant after I think 1991 or 1992. Even talent in good standings like Shawn Michaels eventually retired from England competition. Hell, even Vince's own son Shane left in mid 2000s, but Taker always stayed. How many people can say you've been loyal for 30 years? How many people can say in any business that they have had the ability to be loyal for 30 years? Outside of Undertaker in WWE, I guess Triple H is at 25 years or so. So he's not too far behind. But how many times can you say that somebody's been with a business for 30 years? It doesn't happen. Unless you're the owner of the business and you live and you start out really young and you're there and you don't sell it off to somebody else and you keep it to yourself and you keep it and you're the person in charge. Who the hell, how many underlings can you say have lasted for 30 years? Not many. It's very rare. So for The Undertaker, who's been in WWE since 1990, still be there is a testament of his loyalty. This was funny. This was an actual funny part. I don't know if Undertaker knew it was going to happen 2 years later, but he called his shot for WrestleMania 36 at the Royal Rumble in 2018. Undertaker's just sitting in the back. And at the 2018 Royal Rumble, of course, was the first ever Women's Royal Rumble. That's why Undertaker was there. Michelle McCool was in that match. She had the first elimination, I believe, of the Women's Royal Rumble. She had the most eliminations up until this year, and so on and so forth. But he's sitting in the back and he's watching AJ Styles work. And he said to Michelle or somebody that he wishes he could work with that was one guy I missed out working with is AJ Styles. He wanted to work with AJ Styles. He compares him to Shawn Michaels, which I've heard that comparison from Ric Flair and many others that he is the modern day Shawn Michaels. I tend to agree. This is also, of course, why everyone wants to see AJ Styles take on Shawn Michaels in a match that does not need to fucking happen, but that is beyond the point. But he called his shot, and I'm just sitting there, I was like, yeah, did Undertaker know that what he was going to be doing with AJ Styles 2 years later? Because, wow, that's a lot of foreshadowing. 2+ years later, Undertaker, AJ Styles, Boneyard match. Now, yes, I'm sure Undertaker would have loved to have AJ Styles in an actual wrestling match. And with the way that WWE teased AJ Styles getting pissed off with the fact that The Undertaker's Last Ride, Episode 1, like a sneak peek was happening on television, I'm pretty sure that was not by accident. WrestleMania 34 unfulfilling for The Undertaker. This one, yeah. The final chunk of the installment in The Last Ride deals with Mark Calloway getting himself ready for the match. Big comeback again. His final match against John Cena at WrestleMania 34 in New Orleans. Inside the same arena where his streak and his confidence was shattered. Well, not his confidence, but, where his streak ended, where he got concussed, where everything just seemed to go wrong, and where we all, for the first time, when Undertaker left that arena, for the first time, it really looked like The Undertaker was human. I remember seeing that WrestleMania, how pissed off I was that The Undertaker streak ended. It didn't make any sense then, it still makes no sense now. But The Undertaker losing to Brock Lesnar was not the right call. And what did WWE do with that? They had Goldberg beat Brock Lesnar within less than 2 minutes. And it just made everything that happened at WrestleMania 30 non-existent. Now, the match of John Cena, as we know, lasted 2 minutes. They showed him working with one of the clones, I believe it was Primo, just getting himself ready for a big match, ready for a barn burner, a 10, 15, 20-minute match that was going to tear the house down in New Orleans. and we got a 2-minute match, which fortunately he wasn't happy with. All that for 2 minutes plus, and barely even 2 minutes. As WrestleMania 34 approaches, a slimmed down, in shape Taker speaks again about his legacy surrounding remarks from his build up to WrestleMania 33, even going so far as to say there's a good chance tomorrow is the last time I make the walk, an important part of his life stops. His return match against John Cena in 1/10 as long as his main event with Roman Reigns from the year before, at a going a meager 2 minutes and 45 seconds. But at that time, Taker, to his credit, looked great, but despite the positive reception from the audience and those backstage, you can tell he wasn't happy, remarking that he prepared for a match longer. He said, and I quote, "Mission accomplished. What we set out to do and what to do, I had a lot more in the tank tonight. At the end of the day, that's what I wanted. Hopefully people are going to wonder tonight, what's he going to do next?" Now, what I was thinking that night was, that was it? All this for that 2 minutes? That was it? You wasted a perfect retirement for 2 minutes. That was it. Great. So next time we look at the disasters that were crown jewel between DX and the Undertaker, and between DX and the Brother of Destruction. I'm sure we'll have the match with Rusev at the Greatest Royal Rumble. The disaster probably with Goldberg as well. This is a 5-part documentary in a 4-year span. So I'm having a feeling they're going to go over everything that happened at the rest of that year, because he had all those matches between Rusev, the match with Triple H, the disaster at Crown Jewel. Then he missed WrestleMania 35. He missed WrestleMania 35, and then Goldberg, well, that was a disaster too. So it wouldn't surprise me if we get all the rest of 2018 is going to be explored on the next episode. And yeah, that is going to be something we're going to see. Disaster that was the Undertaker, and the rest of Undertaker, like Undertaker versus Rusev was okay. Triple H versus Undertaker was alright, even though it did need to happen. But man, Crown Jewel, that disaster is going to be. Apparently, that was like, from what it sounds like, that was going to be his last match. Was the Brother of Destruction versus Shawn Michaels and Triple H of DX, and that was a disaster. So that was not something that Undertaker was going to want to end his career on, for sure. Might as well get into this one too. Undertaker Last Ride. Can't wait for that. Episode 3 is going to be today. I'll be able to talk about that next week. But as I spoke at the beginning of this show, the Owen Hart documentary, The Final Days of Owen Hart, on Vice's Dark Side of the Ring. This, if you were somebody in 1999 who watched this live, this was probably something hard to watch, something you did not want to watch. I, honestly, and I'll be honest about this, I didn't know who Owen Hart was until the next day. I didn't know the WWF was a thing until the next day. I was growing up watching WCW because I was a 9-year-old boy who did not have control on what was watched on TV. So I watched what my parents watched. So if it was wrestling and it was on, we were watching WCW, even though WCW at that time started to really sting up the joint. So yeah, Owen Hart, as we all know, May 23rd, 1999, fell from the Kemper Arena to his death. And honestly, just things that we learned on this documentary, if anything you came out of this, is that Martha Hart has all the right in the world to deny Owen Hart's inclusion into the Hall of Fame. Vince McMahon looks worse and worse at every one of these documentaries that we see. The negligence behind the death of Owen Hart cannot be denied. This guy was young, he was young, a good-looking guy, could have been a big star. And as Chris Jericho said later in the documentary, less than a year later, at the beginning of 2000, well, not even that, only about 2 months, 3 months later, Chris Jericho makes his debut. Chris Jericho wanted to be tag team champions at one time with Owen Hart, but Chris Jericho was there. In January, the Radicals, Chris Benoit, Dean Malenko, Eddie Guerrero, Perry Saturn, Kurt Angle came in 2000, wasn't it? It was late 99. All of those guys came in that time. Owen Hart would have had a career resurgence, would have had one of the best runs of his career going up against all of those guys. Edge and Christian, Jeff and Matt Hardy, all these guys who could have come in and worked with Owen Hart. My word, this guy would have had one of the greatest stretch runs of his career had he not fell in 1999. So Owen Hart was, of course, as we knew, dropped. Now, an important feature of the legal case that later followed after his passing, the logistics of the harness equipped the source for the Blue Blazer stunt always analyzed with a foreboding sense of dread that obviously wasn't identified at the time. Now, the thing that they used was this little hook, was this little quick release shackle that you would see on a sailboat. And so what you do with it is that you just pull a pin, it only takes 6 pounds of pressure, boom, pops open, the mask comes open. They used this because they wanted a quick release. They wanted it to be so he could go down and pull the pin and be released. Because the last time he did the Blue Blazer came down, it looked clunky, it looked awful, it took forever for him to get out of it. They wanted to save 10 seconds or 30 seconds of time for him to get this thing off. They were doing this whole entire stunt thing because they wanted to spoof Sting. Because at the time, Sting would rappel from the rafters and he was so hooked up in his harness that it took him time to fight to get it off. So he and the NWO had to wait to watch this guy get done, get out of it, so they could attack him one at a time. But at the time, he was a hero, and people could suspend their disbelief and buy it. Brian Alvarez on the Wrestling Observer news radio, Wrestling Observer Live on Wednesday mentioned that what should have been for Owen Hart, if you were spoofing Sting, because Sting came down and was fighting to get this shit off, what should have happened instead of doing a quick release is it should have been the opposite, where this guy is hooked up by so many different straps that it takes not 30 seconds but 3 minutes to get this strap off. Because if you're trying to make fun of Sting and spoof Sting, you don't go, oh, we're just going to quick release, see if he can do this faster. You do it to where there's so much on him that he has to fight to get it off, and makes him look even goofier. He can even slip on his ass when he's pulling it off, so you're making fun of the guy. The quick release for the snap shackle was the functionality the company wanted, despite pushback from expecting reliable riggers, and Major in a prior contractor in similar regards segment featuring Shawn Michaels and The Undertaker, Joe Brannan. It's here that Pollock's pull from Martha Hart's book Broken Heart, noting her as saying that one of the at least 3 occasions Brannan verbally refused to lower a human in with it. The two sides separated 2 weeks before Over the Edge. Brannan offered a WWE quote to safety performance to perform a similar stunt with the Hart on May 10th, Monday Night Raw, but this $50,000 fee was deemed too high. Yes, WWE, who was hitting their peak in 1999, making all the money in the fucking world, refused to pay somebody $50,000 to safely get this guy down to the ground. Here's an idea. We didn't need the fucking stunt. The stunt was not necessary. It wouldn't have taken away from the pay-per-view. You would have saved the man's life, And Owen Hart would still be here today if Vince McMahon didn't get fucking stupid. Here's what I don't get. Vince McMahon has vehemently said he would not do, like, ask his talent to do something he wouldn't do himself. Did Vince McMahon do this stunt? Did Vince McMahon go and try and do this himself before Owen Hart did it? No. I guarantee he fucking didn't. If I was Owen Hart, I would have said, well, Vince, I want to see you do it. You want me to do this stunt? How stupid this looks? I want you to do it. Because if you can do it safely, then I can do it safely. But I'm not doing it until you do it. So Vince McMahon wanted to save the money, and that is why Owen Hart is not here. Amongst the endless sadness that surrounds the story, there's always been a particularly devastating take from the Bret Hart when asked to discuss the butterfly effect of an alternate universe in which the Montreal Screwjob never occurs. The hitman had rather succumbed to of his thoughts on Owen Hart being made to don the dated blue blazer gimmick. If he wasn't there, it would have never happened. There's no telling exactly how much power Hart could have exerted over such a situation, but especially speaking, he obviously could have benched the persona for the requirement of his brother to take life-threatening flights from the rafters, according to which Owen had no pull. Of course he didn't. Discussing how disinterested the former King of Hearts was with the spot, Lindstrom spoke on Owen's phone ringing throughout a jam visit the pair had made to help Hart avoid rehearsals. If I'm not here, they can't do it. We can't do it, was his reason to take. Until Vince McMahon himself apparently gave him two choices. Be at Kemper Arena in 15 minutes or you no longer work for the WWF. If I was Owen, I no longer work for the WWF. My life's at stake. You're gonna put me in this fucking harness that's not going to fucking work. The second I go to do my dive, I'm going to probably fucking die. So I'd rather go work for WCW with my brother. And here's the thing, they wanted to keep Owen Hart around because they saw him as a big star, which, if that's the case, they would have actually pushed him to be a star. But of course, Shawn Michaels came back and put the kibosh on all that, so Owen Hart was fucked anyway. But Owen should have seen that, yeah, I'm stuck as being the Blue Blazer. I'm better than this. This thing is beneath me. So what Owen Hart should have did was, if he really had that two options, told Vince McMahon, if you really want me to not be in the WWF, then I'll go to WCW and you can put the Blue Blazer gimmick on literally anybody else. See what they want to do. Owen should have never died that day. Vince McMahon. Now, a trivia tidbit, if nothing else, the information that Max Mini was supposed to be a part of the stunt, be a part of the stunt and be in the match, a part of the match against the Godfather. The joke wasn't funny anymore, even if he was, but the Blazer already had bells and whistles before descending from the rafters with a little person strapped to him. Which, now, could you imagine? Here's the thing, if Max Mini would have been strapped to Owen Hart as he was coming down and Owen fell, Owen probably wouldn't be dead, but Max Mini would be dead. Plain and simple. Owen would have fell, unless Owen was falling, like if Owen would have fell straight down with Max Mini strapped to him, where they would have landed, it would have killed Max Mini instantly, and Owen probably would have been injured, but still be alive. I'm just saying. I'm not saying anybody should be dead, but that would have been what would have happened. This was just senseless. I mean, on this documentary, you have, like, when we get to this part, you have Jim Cornette. Jim Cornette just, like, breaking down. Like, I've never thought I'd see Jim Cornette look like he's about ready to cry. Before he's like, it was unnecessary, wasn't needed, we didn't need any of that. Something that Jim Ross, you gotta give it up to this guy, because he had the undaunting task to let everybody know at home what was going on. He had 10 seconds. 10 seconds to let everybody know that Owen Hart died. He didn't get brief. Kevin Dunn came on to his headset, was like, JR, do you know what's going on? He's like, no. Well, he died. And you're back in 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. It just, in the chaos, the folks in the back that was supposed to tell them to go to the position what was going off the headset, doing other stuff, and yeah, he's dead, and you're back in 10, 9, and it was like, how could you put somebody through that? Like, how, like, I give JR all the credit for what he was able to do on that night, because most people, and a lot of people in that position, would not be able to hold it together as much as JR did. JR, if you go back and you watch the clips of him letting everybody know that Owen Hart died, he's calm, he's collected, he's just telling you that Owen Hart died. I, and a lot of other people probably would have, especially if you've been around the business as long as they had been, probably would have been breaking, like trying to do everything to hold back tears as I'm letting everybody know that this young man who had plans outside of wrestling to be with his family. He wanted to spend another few years in wrestling, and then because wrestling, WWE was blowing up, and he was making the money he needed to provide for his family. So when he got out of wrestling, he wouldn't have to wrestle anymore. But everything else happened. The Ghost Likes reaction of Jerry Lawler, if you're just watching it, it just was heartbreaking. Looking at Jerry King Lawler and him, just, man, it was a really rough time. And especially if you saw it live and then you see it again 21 years later, just how eerie and how scary and how terrible it looks. I don't envy what those two had to be there to do at that time. I don't pity Vince McMahon at all, because he could have prevented all of this. Now, of course, there was another guy, Jimmy Corderas, the referee. He makes a little contribution to this documentary, recalling in evidently painful detail his heartfelt memories from the show, including the exact moment he felt a sensation brushing against the side of his head that was strong enough for him to sustain a minor hand injury from the rattled ropes as Owen fell to his death behind him. Corderas' devastated reflections are miraculously coded with an inner strength that he allowed him to try and grieve properly alongside his wrestling family, hurting from the unthinkable loss. A convenient and vital voice of the piece, the Sportsnet broadcaster provided further fascinating insight on the hours and days immediately following Over the Edge, including a rare glimpse into Vince McMahon's own morning on how he attempted to reconcile with everything about the accident in the aftermath. Corderas noted how he was still can't recall how he made the 270-mile journey from the pay-per-view to the following evening's Raw tribute event, and that's that he hasn't watched the show back despite holding on to tapes as many understandably would. In summarizing the story, he pointed out how projects such as the documentary have helped the healing, that said healing remains ongoing 20 years plus later, suggesting how difficult that event was. I can't even imagine. Now, apparently the very last thing that Owen Hart said as he's falling to his death is, "Look out," because Jimmy Corderas was right there, and he didn't want to hit the referee. Another thing is, like I'm saying, is if Jimmy Corderas was in a spot as Owen was coming down, maybe, just maybe, if Owen falls, while like maybe Jimmy Corderas is like, working on something, and Owen falls and lands on Jimmy's back. Would that have saved his life? Who knows? Jimmy Corderas probably would have been paralyzed from that type of move. That's why he wanted him to get out of the way. But that's another one of those what ifs. Could it have been a case that he falls, lands on the referee, paralyzes the referee, but he still lives. Who knows? There's a lot of what ifs surrounding this, and one of the biggest what ifs is what if Owen Hart would have done what he should have done, and if Vince McMahon actually wanted him not to work in the WWF if he didn't do his do the Blue Blazer gimmick, the Blue Blazer dive. Maybe he would have. Maybe things would be a lot different. Owen would have been in WCW for a bit, and we would still have Owen Hart here today. Throughout the documentary, John Pollock speaks at the length with Canadian broadcaster Jeff Merrick to get a contextual and valuable wrestling media take on somebody stationed close to the incident. Merrick, who was a host of Pollock's former home-based live audio wrestling, robust and reliable, the law. There was only one talking point on May 23rd. Ahead of going on the air immediately following the show, Merrick made several key calls. One was to Dave Meltzer to get as much information as he could before broadcast, while others were made via his wrestlers' Rolodex to Terry Funk and the Honky Tonk Man. Now, I know that Dave Meltzer, because Dave Meltzer and I think it was Mike's which one was it? Dave Meltzer and one of the guys from Wrestling Observer Live were talking to Martha Hart, and Dave Meltzer talked to her and told her that, like, after it happened, he had to try and convince and try and get Terry Funk to realize that it wasn't a work. Terry Funk tried everything in his power to make it sound like it was just a work. He's not dead. He's not dead. And he just over and over said that this is just a work. It's not real. It's not something it's not real. Which I can understand. Owen was loved by everybody in WWE. Owen was one of the best men out there. He was a kind heart. He was in a world of snakes and scumbags. Owen Hart was the heart of gold. He was a heart of gold who would take his shirt off and give it to the guy if he needed it. He would hang out with the fans. He was a fan. He was a fan's fan. He was just somebody who you never heard a bad thing about. So when this all happened, if you weren't there that night, or if you didn't see what happened, and you were somebody who was a wrestling fan, you probably figured this is all work. He'll be back on Monday Night Raw the next day. Like, oh, look, he didn't die, ha ha ha, and whatever. But no, it was real, and it was. By the time Vince McMahon sat down with off-the-record Michael Lansbury in July 1999 for an extremely candid interview regarding the events of the Over the Edge, it was just his accounts that Pollock, to one question that got away from the night, and the hypothetical ramification of McMahon's answer had he ever had the chance to put the words into his mouth. Commentating how it hit him on the flight home from the interview, Merrick realized that the show should have been proposed a scenario in which Mr. McMahon's son Shane was in Owen's place. WWE were roundly lambasted for continuing the show. The hypothetical could have provided yet more revealing insight into how and whys of making such a controversial decision in the heat of the moment. Merrick's take on the incident itself highlighted how professional wrestling is often and is in some cases criminally overlooked in comparison to virtually all other forms of sports and entertainment, highlighting how Over the Edge was theoretically a crime scene as a result of Owen's death. He potentially speculated how the events continuation was even merely an administration decision in the first place. Yes, that's something else. This should have ended Over the Edge. Over the Edge should have stopped. The local police should have been there. They should have had the local police called. The show stopped, and they could investigate what was going on. Martha Hart was not happy that she, as she said herself, they just picked Owen up like a piece of trash and moved him out of the way so they could continue the show. Any other wrestling company, this shit happens, I guarantee you. They stop the show and they have the authorities come in and they make sure everything's and they make sure everything is in the up and up, and the show is finished. They're done with it. They're not going to do anymore. But Vince McMahon is Vince McMahon. What do you expect? This is what Vince McMahon does. Vince McMahon is a piece of shit who will do everything he can to make sure that he gets what he wants, and that is all the money in the world. And it just fucking sucks. Some man lost his life. Some man lost his life. 2 kids lost their father. Two kids lost their father because somebody decided that, hey, we needed to do some spectacular stunt that wasn't going to work. And of course, as always when it comes to this shit, how long did WWE in advance to book this spot? If you say they always planned to have it in the spot, you're an idiot. This, of course, just like a lot of other things that we have gone through in our life, they wrote the Kansas City entrance in at the last fucking minute, as Martha Hart spoke about too. She's sitting there, she's talking about the thing, and like she was going to pick Owen up at the airport when she gets a call. It's a lady from the WWF saying, we need to get a hold of Owen. We need Owen to come back so we can get his measurements for the stunt we're going to do. And Martha's like, you just had him. Why didn't you get it then? Oh, we just thought of it. We just came up with it. This is how fucked up this company is. It's been like this for years. They do things last minute, and it just makes no sense. Why would you do this? Why would you do a stunt? This is something that you should have had played in place, and you have the ideas in, like you should have this thing booked months ago, practice it week in and week out until it feels right. But they didn't. They really fucked this up, and unfortunately, WWE just doesn't care. Now, here's something that I don't think anyone else knew about until the documentary. Afterwards, Martha Hart went to the Kemp Arena and actually went to the catwalk. So, because she wanted to see what her husband's last moments were. And that's what the clip was. The clip, even a couple days later, they did not go up and take the clip. The clip was still there. And she was pissed. She was absolutely pissed about that clip. It's just so sad that we lost a really good guy. Now, another thing about this documentary was that the Hart family was divided. She was suing WWE for everything she could, for damages, for whatever the hell she could. And it's divided the Hart family, and a lot of them went against Martha, stole documents to give to WWE's defense team, because those members of the Hart family did not want to piss off the most powerful man in wrestling, and were hoping that Vince McMahon would do them good years later, or whenever they could. It's just so bad that you would do that. And yes, Martha Hart wanted to go to trial. She did. She wanted to go to trial. She wanted Vince McMahon to pay. She wanted WWE to pay in court. She wanted him to go to jail. She literally wanted Vince McMahon to go to jail for negligence. Now, this wasn't in the documentary. I believe it was on Talk is Jericho, where she talked to somebody. I think it was her lawyer or something, and she wanted to go to court, but then whoever she talked to let her know it's only about money. That's all that's going to happen. Nobody's going to go to jail. And that's when she was like, settlement's fine. She'll settle for whatever. And that's exactly what happened. Now, a lot of people, including myself, have wondered, the only time we'll ever see Owen Hart in the WWE Hall of Fame is when Martha passes away. That ain't gonna happen. Oj and Athena both don't want Owen in the WWE Hall of Fame. Now, Martha has not said anything about him not being in a wrestling Hall of Fame. WWE's Hall of Fame is not the only wrestling Hall of Fame. Owen Hart is actually in the Pro Wrestling Hall of Fame. And Martha Hart actually has the plaque and posed with that actual plaque for the Pro Wrestling Hall of Fame. She allowed him into that one. She will never, and Oj and Athena will never allow Owen into the WWE Hall of Fame. But simply put, they do not want a company that took their husband slash father away from them to glorify him and celebrate him because they don't deserve it. That is exactly right. So Owen Hart in the Hall of Fame will not happen. Oj mentioned at the conclusion of the documentary that he doesn't want WWE to have the privilege of honoring his father after what they did. It is a sharp reminder that Owen's death meant for far more to his family than it has meant for his fans, and the vision of his family should always be placed first. They have the Owen Hart Foundation. They help families all the time. Everything that those three people do, his wife, his kids do, are in the name of Owen Hart. So if you do not respect their wishes, then you're just doing their family and Owen Hart a disservice. Would it be great to see Owen in the Hall of Fame? Yes. But it's never going to happen in my lifetime and many other lifetimes. Now, when maybe things will change over time, who knows? But for now, Oj, Athena, Martha say no. Martha will never allow him in. Now, Oj says no too, and of course Athena does too. Athena even said that Athena and Oj do not like professional wrestling. They hate professional wrestling because of what happened to their father, which is not fair to professional wrestling. They can hate the WWE all they want, but they should not be hating on the world of professional wrestling because of something that a senile old man did to their father. You can hate Vince all they want. That's more power to them. But the wrestling business you should not hate because of this and that. This has been a very special episode of Unscripted, episode 120. Hit that subscribe button, comment down below, like or dislike this video. Find me on Twitter at The France Club. Find me on twitch.tv/The France Club. Find me on Instagram at The France Club. And I will see you guys tomorrow for Monday Night Raw as we get towards the worst wrestling match of all time at Backlash. But until then, I'm getting out of here. You guys have a good day. Be kind to one another. Be great. And I'll see you guys tomorrow.